Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Sister Cecilia Joy, a Franciscan sister of Christian Charity, and today we're here with Father Karl Kiser, who is the pastor at Jesuit Church in Cleveland, Ohio, but he's soon to be the Midwest Provincial, or the Provincial Superior for the Midwest Jesuits. So welcome, Father Karl.
Good afternoon, sister. How are you?
Really good. How are you? And how are you? Sorry.
Doing great. Yeah, doing great. Been busy days here, but good stuff.
Wonderful. And so, Father Karl, you have quite the vocation story, especially involving our sisters. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Would love to. So I grew up in Menominee, Marinette, Wisconsin, Menominee, Michigan. I grew up on the Michigan side and went to St. Anne's School, which then became Menominee Catholic Central, but was the Sisters of Christian Charity from Manitowoc were our sisters. And part of that last generation that actually had sisters almost all the way through. In 7th and 8th grade, we had a mixed group, 2 sisters and 2 lay. My older brother and sister would have had the same experience as would my younger sister. So we all had mostly sisters all the way through. My younger sister maybe fewer than I would have had. But boy, my memories of the sisters were just fantastic. I mean, every one of them. I mean, there was one we were afraid of, Sister Prisca, who was a principal, but we have fantastic memories of all of them. And in fact, a couple of years ago, not that many years ago, maybe literally 2, I was just texting with my family and I said, you know, I had such great experiences of nuns in grade school. And I've never asked you guys what your experience was. And my oldest sister, who's kind of fallen away or is fallen away, she wrote back and said, the best women I ever met were the nuns at my grade school. And my brother said, I loved all of them and keep in touch with some. And my little sister said, love the nuns. So we had a great experience in my school with my family, with the sisters. How do you trace the vocation back into where it begins? I don't know. But I have some thoughts on it. But I would say this. I was always actually fascinated by the sisters and loved them. And, you know, when new sisters would come, just what is a mother house and what are they doing were questions that I thought about. And the thought that these women who lived right near the school, that they lived together and they worked together and they came to the school every day, that they were kind, that they were loving, that they were smart, that they helped us. I think, and I would have said this not even just because Sister Cecilia has me talking today, I think that my vocation really is in some ways due to the sisters, because I had such a great experience of the sisters, and it was a vision of something different, of a community life. And like I said, I had a great experience. As a young kid, you know, everybody has their story. My family had some troubles. I won't go into those details today, but I was kind of a sad little kid in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. But a couple of the sisters in particular were so kind to me, and to this day, I'm very grateful for some of the sisters who were very kind to me as my family went through a lot of implosions, and the sisters were kind, and remember that. So did that affect my vocation to be a Jesuit? It had to have, and I know I thought about what the sisters did, how they lived, where they came from as a little boy. It had to have some effect. And even my desire for religious life over diocesan clergy. So I saw the sisters together. They went to Mass together. You know, it was something we did. So.
Wonderful. So why the Jesuits? What inspired you to join the Jesuits?
Yeah, so I didn't have any connection. Interestingly enough, 2 of my siblings went to Marquette, so they would have come in contact with Jesuits. My mom went to college in Milwaukee also. My dad was received into the Catholic Church at the Jesuit Parish downtown Milwaukee, Gesu, not the one I'm at. But we didn't have any religious orders of men in my town or anywhere near us. I remember hearing about the monks of St. Norbert's Abbey, but I'd never met any. So I went to college, and, you know, I hate to put it this way, but I'm the secular one. I went to a public school. So after Catholic school, I went to Michigan State. My sibs went to Catholic. The priest went to public. There was a Jesuit on campus ministry at Michigan State who was a fantastic preacher. And, you know, he always talked about St. Ignatius and Ignatian spirituality. So that was sort of the background. But the foreground was, I knew I didn't really want to be a diocesan priest because I didn't want to live by myself. And like I said earlier, that maybe the vision of the sisters living together in common prayer and life was deep in me somewhere. So I just literally picked up a catalog. This is pre-internet, of course, and wrote to the ones I knew: the Franciscans, the Dominicans, the Jesuits, the Augustinians, and the Marianists. Wrote to them because I had a friend who had gone to the University of Dayton, and then just started to talk to them. What I liked about the Jesuits was that they did everything, whether it was higher ed or missions. I felt personally very called to missionary work. Mm-hmm. And I thought I'd spend my life in South America, actually. But I think I saw them that they did a bunch of different things. They were kind of everywhere. And I thought, I'll find a niche somewhere in here. Whereas some of the other groups seemed more narrow. And I thought, what if that's not my niche? So I felt that I had a lot of options. That's what I was thinking back then. Today, I would say I'm just such a fan of St. Ignatius that I can't imagine anything else. But I didn't know any of that then. Mm-hmm. One other piece, though, in this really, when I was at Michigan State, I did a retreat at the Jesuit Retreat House. And I read a book called The Voice of Blood. Well, I was fascinated by The Voice of Blood. It was about a Jesuit martyr in El Salvador. But I traced back a profound beginning of my vocation to when the religious women were killed in El Salvador in 1980. Our pastor came out and said, before Mass, kneel down, and 4 women were martyred in the church today. And I remember as a kid, riveted by it, and wondering, like, why would someone die for their faith? Because I knew I wouldn't. And that sort of started the journey. But that was the journey. Then I do this retreat, and I read this story about Rutilio Grande, this Jesuit, who was martyred in El Salvador. So all those pieces sort of fit together, and ended up entering the Society of Jesus after college graduation.
Wonderful. Yeah. And you did spend some time in Peru, correct? And
I did. So I wanted to be a missionary, and lo and behold, I spent 3 years there, again, before the internet, so I never came home and wrote letters back and forth. For those of you who are probably watching this, people did really write letters. I probably wrote 3 letters a week. Anyway, hardest experience of my life. But my last year there was the best experience of my life. And I really thought I'd spend my whole life there, but I never went back. So who knows? Anyway, it was a really pivotal point, and I'm really grateful for that experience.
Wonderful. And what's beautiful is Ignatian spirituality is so great for those of us who are discerning religious life. And you have some wonderful, beautiful thoughts about how we should follow the desires of our hearts. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So, when I meet someone who's discerning a vocation, I always say a couple of things to them. First of all, what are your deepest desires? Because I believe that our deepest desires are given to us by God. And in fact, those deepest desires of who we are and who we want to be are really God's desires for us. So to find a way to listen, and, what does it mean? What gives you life? What do you dream about? What do you hope for? In the context of something, of goodness, to listen to those carefully, because you won't be happy in your life if you don't listen to your inner desires. And I believe those are from God. I also think that people should look around. Religious communities are different. I talked to a young man the other day on FaceTime, and I said, look around. Maybe you have a calling to be a diocesan priest. Maybe you have a calling to be a Franciscan, maybe a Jesuit. But not every religious family is the same. And at some point, you need to find the place where you say, this is it. This is where I feel at home. So I would definitely say look around and see how you feel. What does it feel like? And to listen to that. Obviously, pray and go to church. But one of the things you might want to do in your prayer is to listen to where you find joy. Like maybe after you encounter or experience a sister from a community or another, what does it feel like? Do you feel something exciting? Is it joyful? To listen to that as you end the day and say, that was interesting to me, or that gave me joy, or kind of got excited about that, or I could see this here. To listen to the movements. Ignatius would say that the Holy Spirit is always moving in our hearts. So to find a way to listen how the Spirit moves in your heart would be one of the best ways to do discernment. So listen to your desires, pray, look around, listen to the movements in your heart are probably the best ways to discern a vocation. Yeah, I think I'll stop there.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I can relate a lot to that. I'm sure a lot of young women who are discerning can relate a lot to that too. Especially with like me with the Franciscan Sisters of Christian Charity. Like I just felt so at home with the sisters. And that's often one of the advice that I'll give is where do you feel most at home, which
Yeah,
kind of coordinates with what you mentioned.
100%. 100%. I think that's, yeah, there's all kinds of different paths, and some will feel more at home than others, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Father Karl, for being with us today. And just thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And may God's blessings be with you. Thank you.
And I just want to just say, I don't know who watches this, sister, but of the community, but I love you guys. So thank you for all you've done for me and for my family.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We're happy that you were a part of our work and ministry. So thank you so much.
God bless everyone.